Professor Zixnax, why exactly are humans banned from participating in galactic warfare? The question came from a bright-eyed Centaurian student, their crystalline appendages twinkling with curiosity in the lecture hall's ambient light. The professor's dorsal spines rippled in what his students had come to recognize as his equivalent of an amused sigh. He activated the holographic display with a gentle wave of his primary tentacle, bringing up an image of Earth. Ah, yes, the infamous Regulation 47B, colloquially known as the Please Dear Cosmos, Keep the Humans Away from Our Wars clause. He paused, letting his compound eyes sweep across the eager faces of his advanced xenopolitics class. Would anyone like to hazard a guess as to why this regulation exists? A Vulpinian raised her paw. Because they're too violent? Actually, no. Quite the opposite. The humans are remarkably restrained in their modern era, all things considered. The professor's spines flickered in what might have been nostalgia. The real reason is far more interesting. He brought up another hologram, this one showing various human military uniforms throughout history. The problem, you see, isn't that humans are too violent. It's that they're too creative when it comes to warfare. And worse yet, they're disturbingly friendly about it. The class stared at him in confusion. Perhaps it's best if I share a personal account. I was there during the last galactic conflict, serving as a cultural attaché to the human auxiliary forces before the ban was implemented. It all started with what we thought would be a simple training exercise. The memory was crystal clear in the professor's mind. He had been younger then, his spine still vibrant purple instead of their current dignified blue. The human contingent had arrived for joint military exercises with the Galactic Alliance forces, and things had gone sideways almost immediately. "Hey there!" The human commander, Sarah Chen, had greeted him with what he would later learn was called a fist bump, nearly causing him to molt in surprise. "Love what you've done with the battle station. Very Death Star chic. Though you might want to cover that thermal exhaust port." What? He had stammered, already feeling out of his depth. "Just a little Star Wars humor," she'd winked. "Now about these combat simulations. Any restrictions on unconventional tactics?" That should have been his first warning sign. Within hours, the humans had completely derailed the carefully planned exercises. Instead of following the traditional engagement protocols, they had 1. Convinced 3 enemy crews to defect by introducing them to something called pizza and movie night. 2. Reprogrammed the training drones to perform what they called synchronized swimming in space. 3. Turned the entire command center into what they termed a rave, using repurposed emergency lighting. 4. Successfully negotiated a peace treaty through an impromptu cooking competition. But this isn't how war is supposed to work. His superior had sputtered, watching in horror as human and alien crews collaborated on something called a space barbecue. "Why not?" Commander Chen had asked, flipping what appeared to be synthetic meat patties on a modified plasma converter. "If we're going to spend time with our theoretical enemies, we might as well make friends. Anyone want a burger? We've got vegan options for our methane-breathing friends." That had just been the beginning. You see, Professor Zixnax continued, addressing his now rapt audience, humans have this disturbing tendency to turn any military engagement into a social occasion. They call it winning hearts and minds, but it goes far beyond that. He brought up another hologram, this one showing footage from the infamous Rigel campaign. "Watch what happens when these human engineers encounter a supposedly impenetrable enemy fortification." The students leaned forward, expecting to see some sort of advanced weaponry. Instead, they watched in bewilderment as the humans 1. Set up what appeared to be a mobile cafe outside the fortress. 2. Started offering free coffee and pastries to anyone who came out. 3. Began a weekly book club with the enemy garrison. 4. Eventually converted the entire fortification into what they called a paintball arena for joint recreational activities. "But they were supposed to be fighting!" exclaimed a horrified arachnid student. "Exactly." The professor's spines rippled with remembered exasperation. When questioned about their tactics, the human commander simply said, "Why waste time fighting when we can all just hang out instead? Besides, have you tried Sharon's chocolate chip cookies? They're to die for." The class burst into a mixture of confused chirps, clicks, and whistles. "That's not even the worst of it," the professor continued. "The real reason for the ban came during the Battle of Proxima Centauri. The scene had been set for the largest space battle in recent galactic history. 2 massive fleets faced each other across the void, weapons primed, shields raised. And then... "Is that music?" Zixanax had asked. his tentacles curling in confusion. Indeed it was. The humans had somehow hacked the universal communication channels to broadcast something they called classic rock. The opening riffs of Sweet Home Alabama echoed across space. "Oh yeah!" Commander Chen's voice had crackled over the comms. "If we're gonna do this, we might as well have a soundtrack. Hey, enemy commander, any requests?" What followed was perhaps the most surreal moment in galactic military history. A 3-hour debate about music genres between opposing forces, culminating in an impromptu dance battle conducted via ship movements. The humans had then proceeded to 1. Organize an interfleet sports tournament. 2. Start a betting pool on which ship had the best cafeteria. 3. Establish a multi-species choir. 4. Create a dating app specifically for lonely crew members on both sides. "But what about the war?" the Alliance Admiral had demanded. "Oh, that?" Commander Chen had shrugged. "Well, while everyone was distracted by the karaoke contest, we had our tech teams quietly hack into all weapons systems and replace the targeting algorithms with Tetris. Want to play around?" And that, Professor Zixnax concluded, is why humans are banned from galactic warfare. Not because they're dangerous in the traditional sense, but because they have this infuriating ability to turn any military engagement into what they call a party. He brought up the final hologram, showing the signing of Regulation 47B. The official reason states that humans demonstrate a persistent and incorrigible tendency to undermine the fundamental principles of warfare through excessive fraternization, inappropriate levity, and the systematic replacement of combat with recreational activities. The students sat in stunned silence. "But Professor," the Centaurian student who had asked the initial question spoke up, "wouldn't it be better if more species approached conflict this way?" The professor's spines shifted to a thoughtful shade of green. "Perhaps, but the Galactic Council felt that allowing humans to continue their approach would fundamentally alter the nature of warfare itself, and they weren't entirely wrong. After all, it's difficult to maintain military discipline when your entire fleet is busy organizing an intergalactic baking competition." He deactivated the holograms with another wave of his tentacle. The humans, naturally, took their ban in stride. Their official response was to establish what they called the Galactic Peace and Party Planning Committee. They now operate as diplomatic consultants, specializing in turning potential conflicts into, and I quote, "totally awesome hangout sessions." The bell chimed, signaling the end of class. As his students gathered their materials, Professor Zixnax added one final thought. "For next week's assignment, please read chapters 7 to 9 on the evolution of galactic diplomacy. And perhaps we can discuss the humans' latest initiative, converting defunct battleships into what they call space cruise ships, complete with all-you-can-eat buffets, apparently." As the students filed out, the professor's spines shifted to a warm purple of amusement. He had to admit the humans might have had the right idea all along. After all, it was rather difficult to maintain hostile relations with someone after you'd participated in their conga line. He checked his schedule and smiled. He had a meeting later with the Human Diplomatic Corps about converting his lecture hall into something called a laser tag arena. For educational purposes, of course. 2 standard galactic months later, the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber was experiencing something unprecedented: laughter. Not the polite diplomatic chuckles that occasionally echoed through its hallowed halls, but genuine, unrestrained mirth that had several council members at risk of losing their ceremonial headgear. The cause? A human delegation's latest presentation on their Alternative Conflict Resolution Initiative, or as they preferred to call it, how to turn war into a wickedly awesome party. And so, concluded Admiral Jessica Chen, Commander Sarah Chen's younger sister, and self-proclaimed party admiral, "Our pilot program has successfully converted 17 potential combat zones into thriving entertainment districts. The former Zorblax killing fields are now home to the galaxy's largest paintball arena and craft brewery, while the infamous death caves of Rigel 7 have been transformed into what we call an escape room experience." The Council's chief administrator, a normally stoic Andromedian, wiped tears of amusement from all 4 of his eyes. But what about the sacred traditions of warfare?" "Oh, we've preserved those," Jessica assured him cheerfully. "We just gave them a little twist. For example, the traditional war council is now a weekly game night. You'd be amazed how many territorial disputes can be resolved over a heated match of Monopoly." Professor Zixnax, attending as a cultural expert, watched with a mixture of resignation and amusement. as Jessica proceeded to unveil the humans' latest innovation. Battle stations converted into themed entertainment venues. "Behold," she announced proudly, "the HMS Dreadnought, formerly the most feared warship in the Carina sector, now the galaxy's premier floating water park. We've turned the missile silos into water slides, the bridge is a wave pool, and the reactor core powers the lazy river. We call it Splash Wars. The water strikes back." The presentation continued with increasingly outrageous examples. The notorious prison planet Alcatraz 9 had been renovated into a luxury resort specializing in escape room vacations. The Quantum Doom cannon was now generating special effects for the Intergalactic Film Festival. The feared cybernetic war drones had been reprogrammed to run a pizza delivery service. "But what about maintaining military readiness?" protested one of the more traditional council members. "Oh, we've got that covered," Jessica grinned. "Have you ever tried to coordinate a flash mob? That requires more precision than any military drill. Plus, our annual laser tag tournament is technically classified as combat training. The only difference is that everyone gets pizza afterward." As the presentation concluded, Professor Zixnax noticed something remarkable. The traditionally stern-faced council members were smiling. Some were even exchanging contact information with the human delegates, presumably to book their next team-building retreat at one of the converted battle stations. Back in his classroom a few days later, Professor Zixnax added a postscript to his lecture notes. The humans hadn't just been banned from warfare. They'd essentially made warfare obsolete by turning it into entertainment. The galaxy's most dangerous weapons were now tourist attractions, and former enemies were arguing about pizza toppings instead of territorial rights. He smiled as he reviewed the latest statistics. Galactic conflict was down 87%. Interspecies friendship rates were up 342%. The galaxy's first interspecies boy band, the Stellar Heartthrobs, had just gone platinum. Commander Chen's cookie recipe had spawned 12 peace treaties and 1 marriage proposal. Perhaps, he mused, this was the humans' true superpower. Not their ability to wage war, but their talent for turning any situation into an opportunity for connection, joy, and ridiculously themed parties. His terminal pinged with a message from the Human Diplomatic Corps. They wanted his input on their latest project, converting the ancient war college into something called a Cosmic Laser Tag Paintball Karaoke Fusion Center. He found himself actually looking forward to it. After all, as the humans like to say, if you can't beat them, join their party planning committee. One standard galactic year later, the annual symposium on interstellar peace and security looked nothing like its founders would have envisioned. The austere conference hall of the Galactic Council had been transformed into what the humans called a cosmic carnival, complete with holographic decorations, floating refreshment stations, and a dance floor where diplomats from traditionally hostile species were attempting to master something called the electric slide. Professor Zixnax, now serving as the head of the newly established Department of Human-Inspired Diplomatic Innovation, Hindi, watched as a group of Vulpinian delegates challenged their historic rivals, the Felinoids, to a game of laser tag. Remarkable, isn't it? Admiral Jessica Chen materialized beside him, sporting what appeared to be a modified military uniform bedazzled with LED lights. A year ago, those two species were on the brink of war over mining rights in the Whisker Nebula. Now they're arguing about whether it's cheating to use enhanced night vision in laser tag. The professor's spines shifted to a thoughtful shade of blue. The cultural transformation has been unprecedented, though I must admit, some of the changes have been rather unexpected. He wasn't exaggerating. The human influence had rippled through galactic society in ways no one could have predicted. The formerly dreaded warrior caste of the Silicon Hive had reinvented themselves as party planners, their tactical precision making them exceptionally good at organizing large-scale events. Their latest creation, Rave in the Nebula, had become the most sought-after music festival in 3 spiral arms. The Quantum Arsenal, once the galaxy's most prestigious military academy, now offered majors in tactical party planning and strategic fund development. Their graduate program in advanced peacemaking through recreational activities had a waiting list 3 years long. Even the fearsome battle monks of Betelgeuse had adapted, transforming their ancient combat meditation techniques into something called cosmic yoga. Their monthly Zen and Zumba sessions were always fully booked. "Have you seen the latest statistics?" Jessica asked, pulling up a holographic report. "Galactic GDP is up 23% since we started converting military installations into entertainment venues. Turns out people spend a lot more on fun than they do on war." "Indeed," Professor Zixnax replied, watching as a group of former enemy commanders engaged in an intense karaoke battle. Though I must say, your sister's latest initiative is perhaps the most audacious yet. He referred, of course, to Commander Sarah Chen's Battlefield to Breakfast program, which had transformed former combat zones into themed restaurants. The infamous blood plains of Arcturus were now home to the galaxy's most popular brunch spot, where the only things being conquered were the all-you-can-eat pancakes. Oh, that's nothing, Jessica grinned. Wait until you hear about our latest project. We're calling it Operation Spring Break. Before she could elaborate, they were interrupted by a commotion near the main stage. The Andromedian chief administrator was attempting to demonstrate what he insisted was an improved version of the Macarena. His 4 arms were creating some interesting variations on the classic moves. You know, Professor Zixnax mused, his spines shifting to an amused purple. When humans were first banned from warfare, many feared it would lead to their isolation from galactic society. Instead, we've infected everyone with our party virus. Jessica finished with a wink. Much more effective than any biological weapon, and the only side effects are sore feet from dancing and occasional karaoke addiction. The professor couldn't argue with that logic. He'd recently caught himself humming Sweet Home Alabama during a faculty meeting, and his personal quarters now featured a disco ball, for research purposes, of course. As if to prove his point, the conference hall's lighting suddenly dimmed, and a familiar beat filled the air. The opening notes of YMCA triggered an immediate response as thousands of delegates, representing hundreds of species, attempted to form the letters with appendages that were never meant for such gestures. Now that's what I call weapons of mass instruction, Jessica declared proudly, joining in with practiced ease. Professor Zixnax watched as the former supreme commander of the Draconian Empire, his scales glittering under the party lights, attempted to explain the choreography to a bewildered group of methane-breathing entities. Somewhere in the multiverse, he mused, the ancient gods of war were probably having an existential crisis. And yet, as he observed the joy and connection filling the room, he couldn't help but think that perhaps this was what the galaxy had needed all along. Not more sophisticated ways to wage war, but more creative ways to wage peace. His musings were interrupted by a notification on his comm device. The Human Diplomatic Corps had just submitted their proposal for next year's symposium. Galactic Woodstock, Peace, Love, and Interstellar Harmony. He approved it immediately. After all, as the humans like to say, if you can't beat them, and the galaxy had certainly tried, you might as well join the dance party. Breaking news, the Galactic Times. Special report. 5 years after the human ban. A galaxy transformed. Professor Zixnax adjusted his holocam settings as he prepared for his interview with the galaxy's leading news network. His spines had settled into a professional shade of azure, though they occasionally flickered with amusement as he reviewed his notes. Professor, the Arcturian journalist began, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with curiosity. You've been studying the human effect since its inception. Did anyone anticipate this level of cultural transformation? The professor's spines rippled thoughtfully. Truthfully, no. We expected the humans' ban from warfare to be a footnote in galactic history. Instead, it became the first chapter of an entirely new era. The evidence was everywhere. The latest galactic census had revealed some remarkable developments. The former War Master Academy of Rigel now hosted the galaxy's most prestigious culinary and entertainment arts institute. Their most popular course? Conflict resolution through competitive baking, taught by none other than Commander Sarah Chen herself. The dreaded Omega-class battlecruisers had been retrofitted into luxury cruise ships, their weapon systems converted into the most elaborate mini-golf courses in known space. Pudding for peace, as the humans called it, had become an unexpectedly effective diplomatic tool. Even the fearsome cybernetic legions of Tau Ceti had found a new purpose. Their precision targeting systems made them excellent baristas, and their chain of coffee shops, Starfleet Starbucks, had locations in every major spaceport. But surely there must be some resistance to these changes, the journalist pressed. Oh, indeed, Professor Zixnax chuckled. The Traditional Warfare Preservation Society meets every third Tuesday to discuss their grievances. Last week's meeting ended with them accidentally organizing a potluck dinner and forming 3 interspecies book clubs. The interview was interrupted by a familiar figure bounding into the studio. Admiral Jessica Chen, now officially titled Supreme Commander of Galactic Good Times, was practically bouncing with excitement. Professor, you won't believe our latest breakthrough. She paused to straighten her uniform, which now featured both military medals and what appeared to be festival wristbands. Remember those quantum torpedoes everyone was so worried about? We've reprogrammed them to deliver emergency party supplies to conflict zones. The journalist's patterns flickered in confusion. Party supplies? Think about it, Jessica grinned. You're about to start a war, and suddenly, boom, confetti everywhere. Disco balls deploying from orbit, and the warheads are filled with those little cocktail umbrellas. Hard to maintain hostile intentions when you're covered in glitter and someone's handing you a mocktail. The professor had to admit, the strategy was working. The last 3 attempted conflicts had ended before they began, dissolved in a haze of unexpected celebration and impromptu dance contests. But the real breakthrough, Jessica continued, is what we're doing with the Deep Space Early Warning Network. She pulled up a holographic display showing the vast array of sensors that had once monitored for enemy fleet movements. Now they tracked something entirely different. Party trends, dance move variations, and what the humans called vibe fluctuations. We can detect potential conflicts before they start by monitoring fund deficits, she explained proudly. Any sector showing dangerously low levels of enjoyment gets an immediate deployment of emergency entertainment units. The journalist's patterns had shifted to a shade indicating both bewilderment and fascination. And this works. Better than anyone expected, Professor Zixnax confirmed. The latest data shows a 99.9% reduction in armed conflicts, though we have seen a concerning rise in karaoke-related noise complaints. He brought up his own holographic display, showing the transformation of the former War College campus. The parade grounds now hosted weekly farmers' markets. The tactical simulation chambers had become escape rooms, and the nuclear bunkers had been converted into what humans called speakeasy bars. The most remarkable aspect, he continued, is how this has affected technological development. Species that once competed to build better weapons now collaborate on increasingly elaborate entertainment systems. The Hive Mind Collective recently developed a revolutionary new form of virtual reality, specifically for hosting interspecies dance parties. And let's not forget the diplomatic implications, Jessica added. The annual Galactic Peace Summit used to be a tense affair filled with veiled threats and political maneuvering. Now it's basically Coachella in space. Last year's summit prevented 3 wars, established 17 trade agreements, and launched 2 platinum-selling music collaborations. The professor's spines shifted to a warm shade of purple, as he remembered the sight of the Supreme Chancellor of the Draconian Empire attempting to crowd surf. Perhaps that's the true genius of the human approach. They didn't just make war obsolete. They made peace more entertaining than conflict ever was. Speaking of entertainment, Jessica interjected. Have you heard about our latest project? We're calling it Operation Festival of Lights. We're converting the entire neutral zone into... The professor's attention drifted as Jessica enthusiastically outlined plans involving solar-powered disco balls and something called a galactic laser light show. His thoughts turned to the upcoming semester at the university. His course on human-inspired diplomatic innovation had a waiting list longer than the Great Wall of China, which, incidentally, had inspired a popular new form of space station design, complete with tourist facilities and gift shops. Later that evening, reviewing the interview footage in his office, Professor Zixnax received an urgent communication from the Galactic Council. For a moment, his old instincts tensed, expecting news of some looming crisis. Instead, it was an invitation to what the humans called a block party. Apparently, the entire Carina arm of the galaxy was celebrating the 5th anniversary of the last attempted war. He accepted immediately, his spines shifting to the iridescent hue that humans had dubbed party mode. After all, as Commander Chen always said, the best defense against conflict is a really good playlist and enough snacks to share. Excerpt from The Party Protocols, a Personal Memoir, by former War Master Krathos of the Draconian Empire, now Chief Entertainment Officer of the Intergalactic Confederation. When I submitted my resignation as War Master of the Draconian Battlefleet, my subordinates feared I had been compromised by human psychological warfare. In retrospect, they weren't entirely wrong. The humans had indeed waged a campaign against our traditional military values. Armed with nothing more dangerous than party poppers and an infectious enthusiasm for what they called good vibes. It started during the Diplomatic Exchange Program, a requirement imposed by the Galactic Council after several notable incidents involving human peace initiatives. I was assigned to observe their methods, expecting to document weaknesses in their defense systems. Instead, I found myself unwittingly enrolled in what they called Party Planning 101. The key to a successful invasion, Commander Sarah Chen had explained during my first lesson, is making sure everyone has such a good time that they forget they're supposed to be enemies. She demonstrated this principle by organizing an impromptu dance party in the middle of a tactical briefing. I watched in horror as my own security detail, elite warriors trained in 17 forms of lethal combat, became enthralled with something called the conga line. Their scales, normally maintained in rigid military patterns, began to shimmer with unauthorized colors of enjoyment. But the true turning point came during what humans called a karaoke night. I had intended to maintain my dignity as befitting a draconian war master. 3 hours and several renditions of Don't Stop Believin' later, I found myself sharing battle stories and snack foods with former enemies, our old grudges forgotten in the wake of shared embarrassment over attempted high notes. Professor Zixnax, who was documenting these changes for the Galactic Academy, notes in his research that this was not an isolated incident. Across the galaxy, hardened military commanders were succumbing to what became known as the human party plague. The symptoms were unmistakable. The quantum arsenal's feared shock troops were now leading zero-gravity yoga sessions. Their battle cry of death to the enemy had been replaced with Namaste, Galaxy Friends. The Silicon Hive's warrior drones had reprogrammed themselves to specialize in mood lighting and playlist curation. Their hive mind now dedicated 60% of its processing power to determining the optimal moment to deploy the beats. Even the notorious pirates of the Carina Rim had undergone a dramatic transformation. Their fearsome raids were now actually elaborate surprise parties, complete with decorations and gift bags. "You haven't lived," their captain was quoted as saying, "until you've seen the look on someone's face when they realize they're being boarded for a baby shower." The changes weren't limited to military institutions. The very language of warfare was evolving. Traditional military ranks were being replaced with titles like Chief Fun Officer and Supreme Party Commander. Battle plans now included sections on snack deployment strategies and optimal dance floor configurations. The most dramatic transformation, however, occurred within the Draconian Empire itself. Our ancient war college, where I had once trained in the arts of conquest, now hosted the galaxy's most prestigious school of entertainment and diplomatic celebration. Our first graduating class included former assassins who had mastered the art of killer parties, though we're working on adjusting that terminology. Admiral Jessica Chen, witnessing our transformation, had merely smiled that knowing human smile. "See?" she said, watching as a group of former enemy species attempted to learn the Macarena together. "War is exhausting, parties are energizing, and you get better snacks." She wasn't wrong. Our military budget, once spent on weapons development, now funded what humans called epic bash research. Our scientists, who had previously focused on developing more efficient ways to destroy planets, were now creating revolutionary advances in confetti distribution technology and non-lethal party foam deployment systems. The results speak for themselves. The last attempted invasion of Draconian space ended when the approaching fleet was intercepted by our new peace and party patrol. Instead of traditional defensive measures, they deployed an experimental weapon humans called the Mobile Rave Unit. Within hours, both sides were collaborating on a synchronized dance performance visible from 3-star systems away. Professor Zixnax's latest research paper, From War Games to Party Games, The Human Revolution in Galactic Conflict Resolution, suggests that this transformation may be permanent. As he notes, it's remarkably difficult to maintain hostile intentions towards someone who has seen you attempt the YMCA dance with multiple sets of arms. Even the most traditional elements of our society have adapted. The ancient Draconian war cry is now performed exclusively at karaoke nights. Our ceremonial battle armor has been modified to include LED lighting for better visibility on the dance floor, and our feared Dragon-class destroyers have been retrofitted with what humans call sound systems that go up to 11. As I conclude this memoir, I must acknowledge that my former self would be horrified by these changes. The proud Warmaster Krathos, terror of 3 spiral arms, now spends his days coordinating theme parties and teaching diplomatic dance workshops. But as I watch the latest graduation ceremony from our School of Entertainment and Diplomatic Celebration, where former enemies practice the fine art of breaking the ice instead of breaking planetary defenses, I can't help but think we've evolved into something better. After all, as Commander Chen always says, the best revenge is living well, and making sure your former enemies get invited to the party. The party continues. Postscript. Commander Sarah Chen's peacemaking peanut butter cookies recipe remains classified, though rumors suggest the secret ingredient might be love, or possibly a mild psychotropic compound that induces excessive friendliness. Her sister, Admiral Jessica Party Admiral Chen, continues to terrorize traditional military strategists with proposals for turning missile silos into disco halls. Both are considered equally dangerous to the old ways of warfare, though the latter's dance-off diplomacy has prevented at least 3 major conflicts and spawned 2 galactic hit dance moves. The Battle Monks of Betelgeuse have recently released a platinum-selling meditation album titled On Your Way to the Dance Floor. The galaxy may never be the same, but most agree that's probably for the best. The Traditional Warfare Preservation Society's latest meeting ended with the unexpected formation of an interspecies synchronized swimming team. Their first performance, Make Waves Not War, debuts next month. Former War Master Krathos' latest initiative, Dragons Just Wanna Dance, has become an unexpected hit across the galaxy. His signature move, the Plasma Breath Spin, is now taught in diplomatic training academies everywhere. Cast.